Welcome to Shifa Channel. Here, you will witness epic stories that shape the history of Islam, battles of swords, faith, and honor. In today's episode, we begin a powerful journey into the legendary duels of Islam's greatest warriors, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Amr ibn al-As, and Al-Kaka ibn Amr. These were not mere fights. They were battles of destiny that echoed through the deserts of Arabia and into the hearts of Muslims for generations. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment below. Watch till the end for a breathtaking story from the epic Battle of Siffin. Let's dive into the legendary world of Islamic chivalry and courage. In the early days of Islam, when truth clashed with arrogance and swords ran in defense of faith, a young warrior stood in the dust of Arabia, bearing the weight of divine justice. His name was Ali ibn Abi Talib, cousin, son-in-law, and closest companion of the Prophet Muhammad. His bravery was not born of pride, but of deep faith and unwavering commitment to the truth. One of the most legendary moments in his life unfolded during the Battle of the Trench, a moment that history still trembles to recall. The city of Medina was surrounded by enemies. An alliance of Quraysh and other tribes gathered to crush the nascent Muslim community. Under the guidance of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the Muslims dug a deep trench around the city as a defense. It was a new tactic in Arab warfare, and it stalled the enemy. But not for long. Among the disbelievers was a mighty warrior named Amr ibn Abd Wud. He was massive, armored like a fortress, and known across the desert as a man who had never been defeated. With arrogance in his heart and confidence in his strength, he charged across the trench on his horse and shouted out a challenge that echoed across the battlefield. Who will face me? Is there none among you with courage? You claim to have a religion of truth. Where is your champion? Silence fell on the Muslims. Fear gripped their hearts. Amr had killed many in previous battles, and none wished to stand before him. Then the voice of Ali rose. Young, resolute, and fearless, he stood and said, "O Messenger of Allah, allow me to face him." The Prophet looked at him with love and caution. This was not just a duel. This was life and death. He handed Allah his blessed sword, Dulfikar, and made a heartfelt supplication. "O Allah, aid him with your victory." As Ali walked to the battlefield, dust swirled around his feet. The people of Quraysh laughed at the sight. A young man approaching the most fearsome warrior of Arabia. Amr laughed too. "Do you think a boy like you can challenge a lion like me?" Al answered calmly, "I fight not for myself. I fight for Allah, His messenger, and the truth that will outlive both of us." Without further words, the duel began. The clash of their swords shook the earth. The roar of steel meeting steel echoed through the trench. The soldiers on both sides watched, breath held as two figures danced the deadly dance of combat. Dust and blood mingled. Armor struck like thunder, but Ali was swift, his sword like lightning. With a sudden movement, a final blow was delivered, and the great armor fell to the ground, lifeless. The battlefield erupted in cries of astonishment. The Muslims shouted, "Allahu Akbar!" in victory, while the Quraysh reeled in disbelief. The Prophet later said, "The strike of Ali on the day of the trench is greater than the worship of all mankind and jinn until the day of judgment." That day, Ali did not just win a duel, he became a symbol, a man whose strength came not from muscle but from faith. He reminded the world that bravery is not found in the size of one's enemy, but in the truth one carries in their heart. Thus began the legend of Ali, the Lion of Allah, whose sword defended not only the body of Islam, but its very soul. He was the storm that broke armies, the sword that never bent, and the heart that never feared. Khalid ibn al-Walid was not just a commander. He was the embodiment of military genius and divine favor. Before Islam, he had fought against the Muslims at the Battle of Uhud and nearly changed the tide of victory. But after embracing the truth, his sword no longer served tribal pride, he served the cause of Allah. From that moment, he was unstoppable. Among the most legendary moments in his life was the Battle of Mu'tah, a confrontation that shook the foundations of the Roman Empire. The Prophet Muhammad had sent a small force, barely 3,000 men, to face an enormous Byzantine army numbering more than 100,000. The mission was daunting, even suicidal by worldly standards. But this was not a battle of numbers. It was a battle of hearts. As the Muslim army marched toward Mu'tah, they felt the weight of destiny on their shoulders. One after another, their commanders fell in battle. First, Zayd ibn Haritha. As the Muslim army marched toward Mu'tah, they felt the weight of destiny on their shoulders. One after another, their commanders fell in battle. First, Zayd ibn Haritha, then Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, his arms severed as he held the banner of Islam with his last breath. Then Abdullah ibn Rawaha. The Muslim ranks trembled, leaderless, bleeding and surrounded. It was at this darkest hour that Khalid ibn al-Walid took command. With the banner in his hand and fire in his heart, he reorganized the army with unmatched skill. He used terrain, surprise tactics, and fake retreats that confused the enemy. He moved his cavalry like waves of the sea, crashing into Roman shields and retreating like shadows, only to return again with deadlier precision. In the course of one day, Khalid broke 9 swords in his hands, one after the other, until he found only his fate unbroken. By sunset, the enemy was exhausted and confused. Khalid, against all odds, led the Muslim army in a calculated withdrawal, saving thousands of lives and proving that even in the face of overwhelming force, the light of strategy and faith could pierce the dark. When they returned to Medina, people initially criticized what seemed like a retreat, but the Prophet silenced all voices with a single title: He is the sword of Allah, unsheathed against his enemies. That day, the world learned that victory was not in numbers or pride, but in the sincerity of purpose and the brilliance of a heart that feared none but Allah. Khalid was not just a warrior, he was the manifestation of courage guided by faith, a storm commanded by belief, and a man whose very presence turned battles into legends. In the pages of Islamic history, few men have combined the sharpness of the sword with the sharpness of the mind as brilliantly as Amr ibn al-As. He was not merely a warrior, he was a master of diplomacy, a political genius, and a man whose name is tied forever to one of the greatest conquests in Muslim history, the liberation of Egypt. His early life was filled with honor and influence among the Quraysh elite. He was eloquent, clever, and a man whose presence commanded attention. Though he once stood as an enemy of Islam, fate had written for him a different path. When the truth reached his heart, he embraced Islam fully and became one of its strongest defenders. His story as a warrior and commander reached its peak during the conquest of Egypt. The Prophet Muhammad had already predicted that Islam would reach Egypt, a land of civilization and knowledge, but also a stronghold of the Byzantine Empire. During the caliphate of Umar ibn al-Khattab, Amr ibn al-As sought permission to lead a campaign into Egypt. With a modest force of around 4,000 men, he advanced toward the mighty land of the Nile. Egypt was under the control of the Byzantine governor Al-Muqawqis, who had fortified his cities and relied on massive walls and professional Roman legions. To most, Amr's mission seemed foolish. How could a few thousand men overcome one of the most powerful provinces of the Roman world? But Amr was not simply relying on numbers. He relied on deep strategy, swift movements, negotiation, and above all, tawakkul on Allah. As they approached city after city, Amr used clever tactics to isolate Roman forces, cut supply lines, and win over local populations by offering justice and fair treatment. He sent letters to Al-Muqawqis offering peace in exchange for Islam, jizya, or war. At each step, he gave the enemy a choice. And when they refused, he struck with precision. The siege of Babylon fortress, near modern-day Cairo, was the greatest test. Roman soldiers were experienced, well-armed, and protected behind stone walls. But Amr's men fought with conviction. They dug trenches, set traps, used catapults, and launched daring assaults that shook the walls of the city. When reinforcements arrived from Medina under Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, Amr organized a final attack that broke the fortress's resistance. The Romans surrendered, and soon after, the city of Alexandria, the jewel of Egypt, fell into Muslim hands without much bloodshed. With wisdom and diplomacy, Amr ensured that churches were protected, agreements honored, and people treated fairly. Egypt was not just conquered, it was transformed. Under Amr's leadership, mosques were built, knowledge spread, and Islam took root in the land of the pharaohs. He ruled as governor with justice, writing his name into the soil of Egypt, not with oppression, but with reform. And to this day, the legacy of Amr ibn al-As lives on in the mosques of Cairo, in the pages of history, and in the hearts of those who remember the man who walked into the empire of the Byzantines not as a destroyer, but as a bearer of divine mercy and order. The Battle of Siffin continued to rage with unmatched intensity. The sound of clashing swords and war cries echoed across the battlefield. Amid this chaos, the valiant warrior Kaka ibn Amr once again stepped forward. His eyes, burning with resolve, scanned the enemy lines. With a thunderous voice, he challenged any warrior to meet him in single combat. From the opposing side, a fierce warrior named Al-Harith ibn Hakam answered the call. He was known for his brutal strength and had earned a fearsome reputation. As the two men approached each other, silence fell over the battlefield. Every soldier, whether friend or foe, turned to witness the fateful duel. Kaka raised his sword and offered a prayer beneath his breath, asking Allah for victory. Then, with incredible speed, he lunged forward. Harith parried, and their swords clanged violently. They exchanged blow after blow, each strike more powerful than the last. Sparks flew from their blades, dust swirled around them, and the spectators held their breath. Kaka fainted left and spun right, catching Harith off guard. With a swift upward strike, he disarmed his opponent and brought him to his knees. The crowd erupted in a roar, but Kaka, showing the mercy that marked great Muslim warriors, lowered his blade and spared Harith's life. This act of mercy was not weakness. It was strength guided by faith and character. The duel became another example of the Islamic code of war, where bravery and mercy went hand in hand. Kaka returned to his camp, not with the head of his enemy, but with honor far greater. As the day turned into night, more duels followed. Brave men rose, answered challenges, and wrote their names into the scrolls of history. The duels of Siffin were not mere battles. They were legendary confrontations that reflected the spirit of Islam, where courage, justice, and restraint worked together. The Battle of Siffin raged like a storm upon the desert plains. The banners of Ali ibn Abi Talib waved high, and the warriors of truth shouted Allahu Akbar as they faced the army of Muawiyah, led by shrewd generals and fierce soldiers. Among these warriors stood the legendary Khalid ibn al-Walid and Al-Kaka ibn Amr, both celebrated for their unmatched courage and swordsmanship. In the heat of battle, a fierce duel erupted between Al-Kaka ibn Amr and a fearsome warrior from Muawiyah's camp known as Al-Harith. The two clashed like thunder and lightning. The sound of their blades echoed through the air like the beating of war drums. Al-Kaka, light on his feet, dodged and struck with precision, his eyes burning with determination. With a final strike that split the sky, he brought down Al-Harith, and the cry of victory echoed from the ranks of Ali's army. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Amr ibn al-As challenged Ali ibn Abi Talib to single combat, hoping to end the battle with a symbolic blow. The two giants faced each other. Amr was clever, fast, and skilled in tactics, but Ali was the lion of Allah, his bravery legendary, his strength unmatched. Their swords danced in deadly harmony, sparks flying with every strike. At a crucial moment, Ali disarmed Amr, placing his blade at his throat, but Ali, in his mercy, let him live. A testament to his noble character, these duels were more than battles of strength. They were battles of faith, of principles, of honor. They were sung in poems and remembered in the hearts of Muslims for centuries. These warriors were not fighting for glory or wealth, but for the truth they believed in, for the justice they upheld. And so the saga of Siffin continued, each duel echoing the spirit of Islam, courage, honor, and mercy on the battlefield. The Battle of Siffin had reached its climax. Dust swirled around the battlefield as the sun burned high above the plains. Among the sounds of clashing swords and war cries, two legendary warriors stepped forward, Khalid ibn al-Walid and Al-Kaka ibn Amr. Though they had fought on many fronts before, this duel was different. It was no longer just a matter of victory. It was a matter of honor, strategy, and history. Khalid, known as the Sword of Allah, stood firm. His eyes, sharp like a hawk, scanned the field for signs of weakness. Al-Kaka, the fearless warrior, known for shaking enemy ranks with a single charge, circled him. Their swords glinted under the scorching sun. They exchanged no words, only the sound of metal would speak for them. The clash was like thunder. Swords met with deadly precision. Khalid's experience was unmatched, but Al-Kaka's speed was almost supernatural. The soldiers paused, forming a circle, watching these two titans exchange blow after blow. Each movement told a story of the Prophet's campaigns, of battles in Persia and Sham, of nights spent praying and mornings preparing for death. Suddenly, Al-Kaka feigned a retreat, then twisted and struck low. Khalid blocked it just in time and countered with a sweeping arc. Sparks flew. The duel continued, but neither gave in. Blood dripped from shallow wounds, yet their spirits remained unbroken.